Multiple news outlets received a video from a source claiming to be Zephyr. He says he is issuing an open challenge to all street racers and law enforcement.
Officer in pursuit of suspect vehicle, assistance has been requested.
Nothing we're doing is touching the suspect. We need air support to keep track of him, over. Air 14, all units. We're overhead. NFS on suspect. Control racer shoot. Aggressive force. Requesting support from units nearby. This race is over, dispatch.
Deja vu, I just been in this place before. Oh wait.
Requesting support from any backup units in the area.
All units near Eastwood Rise. Officer in pursuit of multiple targets requires assistance.
Yes, bring those cops. We are in Grand Tour, the 28-mile race which defines the racer story.
Dispatch, we need units assigned for roadblocks.
Roadblock request denied at this time. Insufficient units available. All units be advised you are losing the target.
One Lincoln 6 in pursuit of suspect.
Okay, are they just not ready for this? Did we literally catch them with their proverbial pants down?
Attempting to take me out.
But yes, I have actually done this race so many times now. Some of y'all might recall I did it in the McLaren P1, the Chevrolet Corvette Stingray, the Pagani Huayra, and even the Koenigsegg 1-1 Agera. So now we're doing it in the Enzo. Now, this one race is going to take a while. Most people doing a Grand Tour run rely on turbos in order to set records. Hell, I've even done it, and my record, if memory serves, was 9:19 in the Koenigsegg. But today's race is more about carnage and civil disobedience. We are here to, as Zephyr himself put it last time, provide the ultimate reality show. Well, looks like the RCPD is finally getting their act together. This should be fun.
Dispatch, I've got another suspect in view, pursuing multiple targets now. We're being outpaced here. We need help to run this pursuit down.
Copy that. Continue on current.
Well, guess they're not the only ones I should be worrying about. In runs like this, if you're not going for records, slow and steady really is the key. One of the oversights on EA's part is PvE drivers cannot repair their vehicles, which to be honest is something a remake should address. It would be a lot more true to form at any rate, but in our case, all we need is to outlast them.
All units, anyone maintaining a visual of losing this?
Oh, this fool, for example. I don't think they're going to last very long, but we can play it by ear, see how far they get.
Copy 1037. Request airship is inbound.
Target's trying to force me into the wall. 1125 failed to stop the target. Still ongoing. Dispatch, I'm getting negative on the license. They must be carrying false plates. Over.
Alright, let's run up on him. Well, that only took a love tap, and now we're in the lead.
Need some help here, dispatch. Requesting roadblocks.
Be advised establishing roadblocks to contain the suspect. Check NBC for location.
Holy frick, was that another car judo move? That spinning pit was amazing and would have totally wrecked me if I didn't shockwave.
Suspect's trying to run me off the road.
Roger that. 1037 is on its way.
Need some help here, dispatch. Requesting roadblocks.
All units. We have roadblocks in position.
Suspect racer is non-violent. Suspect hit me. Trying to take me off the road. Just engaged. Dispatch, advise all units. Suspect is engaging.
Alright, we're more than 2/3 down. Let's keep that momentum.
All units be advised pursuit in progress of a 10. Officer requesting backup.
This race is slamming into me. This was intentional.
Let's see if they'll start bringing out the big guns. this is always the most nail-biter section of the race, but somehow we still have nearly full health. Oh, we are untouchable.
Clear all secondaries. We need units diverted off secondary calls to assist.
There is literally only a mile to go. We are actually gonna dominate this. What the? Damn you.
We're coming to you with live footage from Redview County, where the racer known as Zephyr has just been involved in a horrific high-speed collision with local police units. Paramedics are making their way to the crash site as we speak, but from this vantage point, it's hard to picture anyone surviving a wreck like that.
I am the reality show. The 15 minutes you'll never have. They say speed kills, but if you aren't speeding, then you aren't living.
And thus, the story of Zephyr lived on in the hearts of Redview County citizens forevermore. The end. But not really, because if you've watched both the cop and racer endings, then you, like me, are likely to have a lot of questions and theories as to what the hell you just witnessed. Therefore, shit, here we go again. When you look at the actions of Zephyr in this timeline compared to Fate's actions in the cop timeline, there are a lot of chronological anomalies. In this timeline, a major plot point is when Zephyr yoinks a cop car from the Gullwing Armory. While this does also happen in the cop story, it is almost entirely glossed over because the media is, for some reason, more focused on Fate being the most wanted criminal in Redview. Fate does witness the Zephyr in wolf's clothing video secondhand in that timeline, and it does become a motive for him to personally target Zephyr, yet the entire narrative is just completely askew. Additionally, the Grand Tour race finally becomes invoked during the racer timeline, whereas in the cop timeline, Zephyr is taken out literally minutes prior to the race even starting. So where the frick is Fate in the context of Grand Tour? Fate's Ferrari Enzo is actually not present in any of the penultimate cutscenes of the racer story, nor is he alluded to as being among the police who crash you out at the end of the race. It's honestly like you never actually face him. You see, there's a lot of implications to that, the first of which is all but confirming what I believed all along, that Zephyr was a former VRT operative. He knows insider info about the task force. He uses similar technologies that the general public would not have. And the fact that he can even snag a police interceptor Agera in the first place implies it may have actually been his own personal cruiser when he was an operative. Though what really drives this point home is, at the end of the racer timeline, it is implied that Zephyr is still alive. He starts up his car again and drives off. Thus, Fate never finishes the job and is therefore never removed from the task force. The racer ending is considered the true ending because Fate will pursue you to the literal ends of the earth in the post-game, which was the whole massively online battle royale part of the game this whole thing is supposed to be leading up to. But what kind of bullshit is that? So this is where we need to re-examine the racer industrial complex. Because on the surface, Zephyr's only motivation at the start of the story was, I am racer, I like to go fast. That's not a lot to go on. Yet over the course of the story, he develops an entire manifesto about calling out the RCPD for their rampant hypocrisy, and all of it culminating into a sanctioned duel among the court of public opinion. The question is, why do any of that when he could have at any time destroyed the credibility of the RCPD and the VRT altogether simply by dropping the bombshell that the VRT was full of crooked cops and ex-street racers. It is really that simple. Imagine, if you will, that in the 15 years following the sanctioning of bin Laden, the most prolific terrorist in the 21st century, that a scandal broke out where the members of SEAL Team 6 also included foreign nationals who served under, let's say, Al-Qaeda. Imagine how the American public would react to a scandal like that. Now apply that logic to the VRT. Put simply, there would be no VRT left at the end of the game. In fact, just to put the issue to bed, real-world agencies like the FBI and the US Navy are only ever given the authority to recruit criminals and foreign nationals as assets with very strict clearances and usually in exchange for commuted sentences. Meaning, in the criminal justice system, the public would know exactly how these individuals were being used for specific operations when those individuals were later brought to trial to have those sentences commuted. Again, not so the case with the VRT. So the reason Zephyr doesn't do this very obvious thing is because it would have signed his own death warrant well in advance of Grand Tour. And this is probably what happened in the cop timeline. Like, it's uncanny how the VRT don't actually target Zephyr that openly in the racer timeline, while being merciless in the cop timeline. And one more thing. Some of you who have played this game yourself may be wise to the fact I made an alteration to its ending. See, in the ending, you actually crash at the finish line itself, and then the scene cuts to a smoke plume over half a mile from the finish line. This is such a strange continuity error that I've never really understood, and no, it's not the only issue with that scene. The Interstate 580 sign makes even less sense, but that's probably for a different video. Regardless, I got kinda lucky crashing about 1 mile from the finish line, because while not perfect, it does make it somewhat spoofable and allows me to prove a point for purposes of plot. When the Grand Tour race started, the police were honestly a bit jumbled. They didn't have resources available, they were intentionally falling back, and it wasn't until halfway through the race they started to bring out the big guns like helicopters and hypercars and pulling off those kick-ass car judo maneuvers I love so much. Looking over the footage as I was writing this, I found that it was a McLaren F1 which actually took me out. That's something to be expected from a story climax like this one. But the cars in the final roadblock scene, as Ghost and Criterion wrote it, they were more standardized units, acting more by the book, and again, taking away from the prominence of the VRT to the racer story. And if the writers wholly expected to keep Zephyr alive at the end of that story, why not end it with the VRT extending a recruitment invitation to Zephyr? The only answer I can think of is they had already worked with him in the past. Again, this all ties into a much larger picture. The true story of NFS rivals, so to speak. It starts with Zephyr escaping the VRT and beginning his crusade of encouraging street racing across Redview County. He executes carefully planned media drops through the internet to create an astroturfed movement which the public starts to rally behind. Cops respond as per protocol, but then a cop gets seriously injured in the process. The police escalate their force and it furthers the societal rift until the police are suspended for a culture of intimidation, allowing the VRT to be called in. The VRT starts their recruitment process, and that is when they stumble upon Fate, who is a deranged sociopath and borderline criminal himself. And that's where the story is entirely in the hands of Zephyr. If he never whistleblows the VRT, then he's just a terrorist who will preach the gospel until the day he dies, and the VRT goes back to being a ghost organization. But if he does start to whistleblow the VRT, he gets sanctioned with extreme prejudice, and Fate becomes the next anonymous propagandist, something we already talked about at the end of the cop story. But then again, this is all just theory crafting, and the reality might have been the writers never thought that far ahead when they were putting the story together. I honestly don't know. But that is the full story of NFS Rivals. The end. Except not really, because we still have 2 more career runs to do. So once again, this is to be continued, and stay tuned for even more action in future episodes.